Hello, my name is Jacob Wong, and this is my Human Evolution Overview assignment. I'll be discussing the evolution from early hominins to modern humans with evidence from 5 fossils from 5 presentations. I'll start my discussion with the fossil of Ardipithecus ramidus. Nicknamed Ardi, she is a 4.4 million year old female partial skeleton. She is one of the most complete early human skeletons scientists have discovered to date. She was discovered in 1992 at the Amaris site in the Middle Awash region of Ethiopia by Tim White and a team who collected around 110 fossils of Ardipithecus alone. Ardi is predicted to have stood almost 4 feet tall, weighing roughly 110 pounds, and during her lifetime, it's believed that she lived in a moist woodland habitat. Now, in terms of her morphology, Artie combined human and ape-like traits. She had an ape-sized brain at roughly 300 to 350 cc. She had a flatter face than chimps and a pushed-out middle face. Artie was capable of moving in trees using all 4 limbs equally by grasping branches with her opposable thumbs and big toes. However, interestingly, her skull was found at the top of her spine, which suggests an upright posture and bipedal capabilities. It's thought that she probably spent most of her time in the trees, but she probably wasn't swinging from branches. This is because Artie's hand can bend backwards at the wrist, which is unlike gorillas or chimpanzees who have stiff wrists designed for knuckle walking. Artie's flexible hands gave her the ability to walk with 4 limbs carefully on top of branches. What evidence do we have to suggest that Artie was bipedal? Again, her skull, which sits at the top of her spine, suggesting an upright posture and thus bipedal locomotion. Additionally, her feet, which each have 4 rigid modified toes that supported bipedal walking. And finally, her pelvis had a short and broad ilium, similar to that of humans today, which allows the attachment of powerful muscles to the pelvis, which giving us stronger legs, which lets us walk upright on 2 legs. Now, what are the evolutionary interpretations of Artie? Artie helps us understand more about the anatomy of our common ancestors between that of humans and African apes, specifically when discussing Ardipithecus ramidus's limb lengths and proportions. Based on those features and that it was almost a complete skeleton, it helps us understand more about the anatomy of the common ancestor, which is important when trying to understand the evolutionary forces that drove the changes between African apes and humans, but also more broadly what connects us to our African ape ancestors. Now, the next fossil I want to discuss is Salam, a member of the Australopithecus afarensis species who lived roughly 3.3 million years ago, a full 1 million years after Ardi. Salam was found in Dakika, Ethiopia in December of 2000 by Ethiopian paleoanthropologist Zerensene Alamseged and his team. Based on analysis of the fossil, it was determined that Salam was a female Australopithecus afarensis hominin and was roughly 3 years of age during the time of her death. In terms of her morphology, there were many notable aspects of her fossil. She had an extremely well-preserved skull and jaw, including a nearly complete set of teeth, which is really important in determining the identities of classifications of Salam, such as age and sex. Morphological features on Salam allowed researchers unprecedented ability to study the growth and development of this and other hominin juveniles. For one, Salam's bone structure showed that she had the ability to walk upright on 2 limbs, but she was also capable of climbing trees. Salam's fossil had a very complete spine and vertebrae relative to other recovered fossils, which served as further evidence for Salam's bipedal nature. Her fossil resembles modern humans more so than apes in the fewer number of ribs and rib-bearing vertebrae that she had. However, her recovered shoulder blades, which were more similar to the shoulders of apes than modern humans, reflect an arboreal nature. At the same time, her curved fingers reflected arboreal locomotion, and she had a more ape-like hyoid bone. From her fossil, we can tell that she was capable of both bipedal locomotion as well as arboreal locomotion, but there's uncertainty in whether she and other Australopithecus afarensis used both or favored one over the other. Nevertheless, there is an overall consensus that this fossil is key in learning about a general turning point in human ancestry, where some features of modern humans were beginning to appear simultaneously with other ape-like characteristics. The discovery of Salam showed that the ability to walk upright developed much earlier than we originally thought. The next fossil I want to discuss is known as Peking Man, a member of Homo erectus. Peking Man was found in the Zhoukoudian site near Beijing, China. The site dates back to 770,000 years ago to 230,000 years ago, where the species occupied it sporadically throughout that period of time. This time period is nearly 3 million years after Salam lived. The site yielded the largest number of Homo erectus fossils found in a singular place, over 50 individuals. Additionally, there were also over 100,000 stone tool artifacts found in the cave system, along with evidence to support that the theory that they used fire. The morphology of Homo erectus is very fascinating. Like the modern human, the body was quite robust in terms of the skeleton. Unlike the modern human, however, they were smaller, shorter, and stockier than modern humans. Their limb bones were indistinguishable from those of modern humans apart from the thickness, and they were fully bipedal, which can be deduced from the structure of their pelvis and thigh bones. The skull of Peking man also had many unique features, such as a large face with low sloping forehead, a large brow ridge, and a broad, flat nose. Additionally, it had a sagittal keel along the top of his head, known to attach powerful jaw muscles required for chewing and biting through tough material. The size of the cranium was similar to modern humans, roughly 950 to 1300 cc. An occipital torus was present, which is the horizontal ridge at the back of the head, which is actually not observable in most modern humans. For the jaw and teeth of Peking man, he had a large jaw and pointed chin, which are features uncommon to early hominins, and he also had less prognathic facial features like that of modern humans. What we can see by observing the morphology of the Peking man is that there are mixed characteristics that represent features of early hominins and derived features that are shared with modern humans. At the same time, however, they have derived features that aren't shared with modern humans, such as a large brow ridge and an occipital torus. Peking man helps bridge the gap between early hominids and modern humans. It is believed that Peking man had the ability to control fire, develop creative behaviors, produce and use tools, and develop cultural systems and rituals such as burying the dead. These features put them between primitive early hominins and modern day Homo sapiens or humans. The next fossil I will discuss is La Chapelle aux Saints, commonly referred to as the Old Man of La Chapelle, a member of Homo neanderthalensis. The Old Man was the first relatively complete skeleton of a Neanderthal found by scientists, which makes it a very important fossil because before then, scientists didn't really fully understand the morphology of a Neanderthal, but this skeleton gave them a much clearer picture than they had previously. He was discovered in 1908 in France by Amédée and Jean Boyessani and L. Bardin. One of the remarkable things about the fossil was how well preserved it was. It is estimated that the fossil is approximately 60,000 years old, yet it was extremely intact with almost the entire skeleton inside of it, which enables morphological characteristics to be very easily observed by scientists and paleoanthropologists to get a good idea of what Neanderthal might have looked like. Now, in terms of the morphology of the old man, the fossil contains most of the skeleton, including the skull, the jaw, most of the vertebrae, several ribs, most of the long bones of the arms and legs, and even some smaller bones in the hands and feet. The skull itself reveals some very interesting things about Neanderthals, with their very low receding forehead, protruding midface, and heavy brow ridge. There's also evidence of lots of missing teeth. The old man likely lived a very harsh life, which can be deduced from the dents and fractures along the skull, and the teeth indicate that the old man was between 40 and 45 years old at death. Additionally, other pieces of the skeleton indicated to scientists that Neanderthal likely had degenerative diseases such as severe arthritis, which explains Neanderthal's poor posture, rather than the previous conclusion that Neanderthal was just a primitive species. So instead, they concluded that Neanderthal was more modern and intelligent than they had originally thought. Neanderthals are actually our closest extinct human relative. They were fully bipedal, had strong muscular bodies and wide hips and shoulders. The adults grew to about 1.5 to 1.75 meters tall and weighed about 64 to 82 kilograms. Their short, stocky physiques catered to colder environments, and their bulky trunk, in addition to their short lower leg and lower arm bones, gave Neanderthals proportions that would have minimized the skin surface area, presumably to conserve heat under the predominantly colder conditions of the last 200,000 years. Even more, the brain size of Neanderthals ranged from at least 1200 cc to 1750 cc. This is actually larger than the modern average, but in proportion to their body size, Homo sapiens skulls from around 30,000 years ago also had larger brains on average than people today. Neanderthals were skilled tool makers as evidenced by excavated objects such as spears and flint hand axes. Around 300,000 years ago, Neanderthals developed an innovative stone technology known as Levallois technique, which involved forming a pre-shaped stone core that could be forged into a finished tool. What's even more interesting and unique to Neanderthals is that they made and used a diverse set of sophisticated tools, controlled fire, lived in shelters, made and wore clothing, were skilled hunters of large animals, and also ate plant foods, and occasionally made symbolic or ornamental objects. In fact, there's evidence that Neanderthals intentionally buried their dead and occasionally even marked their graves with offerings, such as flowers. This is a practice that no other primates and no earlier human species had ever done. Lastly, I want to talk about Homo kibish 1, a member of Homo sapiens, which is actually the species that we modern day humans belong to. Homo kibish 1 is the second oldest anatomically modern Homo sapien fossil uncovered. It is dated to around 195,000 years ago and was recovered in Kibish Formation at southwestern Ethiopia in 1967 by a team directed by Richard Leakey and Kenya National Museums. During the expedition, tools and fauna were recovered at the site that link back to the Lumpemban industries of the Middle Stone Age. The skull of Homo kibish 1 contained part of the occipital bone, both parietal bones, and most of the frontal bones. Its skull was very large at around 1435 cc, and it had a high rounded brain case. The fossil itself had scanty and broken facial bones, but it had a well-developed chin, similar to those found in modern humans. Additionally, it had reduced lateral brow ridges, also found in modern humans. From the fossil of Homo kibish 1, in terms of the postcranial skeleton, researchers determined that the individual was strongly built and fully adult with a proportional muscular impression and no features found outside of modern humans, which means that the skeleton of Homo kibish 1 was very similar to our postcranial skeletons. One of the most interesting things about Homo kibish 1 is its pelvis, which was actually uncovered 30 years later. The pelvis could inform the age of death, sex, approximate body size, and trunk morphology of the individual. And from this, researchers concluded that Homo kibish 1 was a young adult female at the time of her death who weighed around 73.9 kilograms and had a vertically oriented ilium just like us, indicative of bipedal locomotion. Homo kibish 1 had many implications in terms of the evolution of hominins. For one, the various brain case shape of early Homo sapiens suggests a range of morphological variation in early Homo sapiens in Africa, and these variations suggest that most of the changes to Homo sapiens in the last 300,000 years are mainly focused on the shape of our brain case. Overall, what I want y'all to take away from this in terms of the evolution of hominins are a few key trends. The fossils that I've discussed today were intentionally chosen to highlight the process of evolution from an early hominin, such as Ardi, to a modern human, such as Homo kibish 1. So as we get closer and closer to modern humans, if you can see from the image on the screen, we see a gradual increase in brain size and cranial capacity, as well as a shift from quadrupedal locomotion to bipedal locomotion, spending less and less time in trees. As we move through the evolutionary tree of humans, we see an increase in creative behaviors, cultural systems, tool use, cooking, and just an overall increase in complex thought processes. And as we have seen from the 5 fossils that I've discussed today, Ardi, Salam, Peking Man, the Old Man, and finally Homo kibish 1, the evolution of our species from an ape-like ancestor to what we are today is a very complex process. Our lineage is full of side branches and dead ends with species like the robust Australopiths that persisted for over 1 million years before going extinct. Some human traits, such as bipedalism, evolved relatively early in our lineage, whereas others, such as large brains, did not evolve until relatively recently. What I hope you take away from this is that rather than being a straight course towards some predetermined ideal, the evolution of our lineage is much more complex and dependent on the environmental changes, genetic luck, and geological chance. So you gotta wonder where the next million years will take us. Thank you for watching and listening, and here are my references.